afternoon and welcome to today's Leader Lunch Break Way Forward workshop, where we are thrilled to welcome Beth Glas to the conversation. Beth Glas describes herself as a staunch advocate for accessibility and inclusivity for those with disabilities. It is this unwavering commitment that led to her selection as the third executive director in the history of linking employment, abilities, and potential, acronym LEAP, last October. She brought with her an enthusiasm to build on the Northeast Ohio nonprofit's 40-plus year legacy of advancing a society of equal opportunity regardless of disability. Her appointment serves as the natural progression of her career, which most recently was 16 and a half years of experience as the executive vice president of Max Housing. A native of Washington State who came to Cleveland via New York State, she describes herself as a Clevelander by choice. Since she arrived here in 2007, she has aided in making the city she loves more accessible to and inclusive of people with disabilities. When chosen to lead LEAP, she was heralded as being well equipped to continue advancing the mission of LEAP as a center for independent living for those with disabilities. Outside of her work with LEAP, and in further manifestation of her commitment to inclusivity, she co-chairs the Northeast Ohio Coalition of Disability Organizations, which is a coalition of 22 disability-related organizations, all devoted to advancing inclusivity. And she still finds time to serve on the board of Bike Cleveland. We are proud to call her an alumna of Leadership Cleveland 2023. Beth, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I should hire you to pump me up every day. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm excited to share more about LEAP with you. So LEAP, we advance a society for equal opportunity for all persons, regardless of disability. We do prefer LEAP as the acronym, much easier and more accessible to say. While I've been executive director at LEAP for only 8 months, I've worked in this field for 17 years. LEAP is well known in the disability community, and I'd had the opportunity to work with folks from here, both staff and program participants, for many, many years. And I hope you'll soon see why I was so excited to be a part of this team. Cleveland has a lot of disability organizations. What makes LEAP so special to me is that we work with adults with any disability and any income level. Over half of our board and staff have a disability, ensuring that the work that we do and how we do it is appropriate, impactful, and relevant. We're a federally recognized Center for Independent Living and serve Cuyahoga, Lorain, Lake, and 4 other local counties. As the Center for Independent Living, we perform 5 core services, which include independent living skills training, peer support and counseling, and assisting people as they transition from nursing homes and other institutions into the community. LEAP also specializes in helping people navigate public benefits and also provide employment services. At LEAP, we engage over 1,500 people a year, which is really great for a small organization. However, there are about 188,000 people with disabilities just in Cuyahoga County. So this number is quickly increasing with our aging population and, of course, the mass disabling event of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's a clear need for LEAP to grow and experiment, particularly in the areas of advocacy, employment, and community building that I'll focus on now. Advocacy is a core service for every Center for Independent Living, and LEAP has a really long legacy of advocating for change. Our staff are active in state and federal level advocacy, advocating for fair wages for people with disabilities, funding for Centers for Independent Living, and ensuring access to appropriate health care. One of my goals is to increase our local advocacy effort, engaging county and city governments to increase compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and to create truly inclusive communities going beyond the ADA to really welcome and encourage the participation of people with disabilities. This spring, we held a town hall with local government officials and the disability community with a large and very vocal turnout. And that will be just the start of our advocacy this year and events like that town hall. We're restarting our community advocacy group, led and directed not by LEAP staff, but by community members with disabilities. We're also holding community accessibility walks within our neighborhoods, beginning on July 10th in Ohio City, which is where both LEAP and myself reside. Improvements in healthcare access and public benefits, as well as improved physical accessibility in our public spaces, makes other areas of life, including employment, easier for people with disabilities. A recent study shows that 72% of Americans feel more favorably toward companies that hire people with disabilities, and 87% would give business to those companies. Our employment services team supports 150 to 200 people with disabilities each year as they explore career opportunities, secure employment, and navigate the workplace. We also work with you, the employers and managers, to hire people with disabilities and help them navigate that workplace, to keep and retain people with disabilities, who often have much higher retention rates than people who do not have a disability. We offer trainings on the ADA and also on true disability inclusion at work. We can provide your employees with disabilities with job coaching and support. Employment is just one way for any person to participate in their community and build relationships. During the pandemic and continuing today, isolation and loneliness have particularly impacted people with disabilities. Our Quantum Leap recreation program engages over 200 people each year in sports and arts. We also hold 4 very fun dances each year. We have one coming up that I'll mention later on. Due to funding requirements, this program has focused on people with developmental disabilities. So one of my goals is to diversify our offerings and bring more people with different disabilities to LEAP for recreation and socialization, particularly people who don't currently need social services, but do need friendship and understanding, a safe space around other people who they can relate to. Your support in any way can help us overcome the largest challenge, which is awareness and visibility. People often don't know about LEAP. I'm guessing most of you didn't until today. Most people don't know about us until they or a family member need our services. Even more concerning, most people don't like to think about or talk about disability, which means that the ongoing needs of our community aren't always addressed. Inaccessible and non-inclusive spaces continue to be built. Business owners and managers have to be convinced to hire people with disabilities, and often cajoled or threatened into treating them fairly with lawsuits. People with disabilities and their family members or other caregivers have to spend a lot of time on logistics, research, and planning to participate in everyday activities like going to a restaurant or sometimes even just walking down the street. Our work at LEAP is trying to address all of these concerns, and all of you here today can help us make positive change. There are many ways to get involved, and I've got my contact information here, and you can just send me an email or a call to join us. You can advocate with us. If you see something inaccessible, you can say something. You can even take action, like, for example, moving a sandwich board for a business that's blocking sidewalk access. You can move it over. If you're going to a restaurant and you notice that there's only steps going in, you can inquire about the accessible entrance. And then you can try to promote businesses that have great accessibility. You can join us at one of our upcoming events, which are always posted on our website. We have the community walks that I mentioned beginning July 10th in Ohio City. Disability Pride celebration is going to be on July 27th this year in Lakewood. And the annual March for Access will be on September 21st in Public Square. LEAP is also launching a disability experience panel series, which will begin this October. You can engage LEAP to provide ADA and disability inclusion trainings and support for your business or your community. You can hire us for an accessibility assessment of your business or your community. I'll even come and help you figure out how to make your home more accessible. You can volunteer for our Quantum Leap Recreation Program, and we're holding a prom on May 31st. So just a few more days, and we're still recruiting a few more volunteers because we have over 170 people signed up for this year, a little more than we were expecting. So drop me an email and you can join us at this fun party. Even more importantly, you can ask us to volunteer for your nonprofit. People with disabilities are often seen as those who are served by others, but our community is more than happy to come and serve with you and serve your community members as volunteers. And of course, you are more than welcome to donate and support LEAP through sponsorships and kind support and so on. Thank you. Questions?
Beth, thank you so much. So let's start by talking about how do individuals or families access the services of LEAP?
Sure. The best place to start would be to call us or to fill out the contact form on our website. We can then direct you to our general information and referral person who can lead you around our organization and the service that you're interested in. I put my direct number on here, and I can get you to the folks that you need to talk to.
And as you look at the range of services provided, are there some success stories that you can share about the impact of the services?
Absolutely. So a story that's something that happened recently is we got a call from a woman who was looking for LEAP to work with her adult son in securing employment. And she specifically wanted to work with LEAP because 25 years ago, her husband worked with LEAP in securing employment and still today works at the bank that LEAP helped him start working at and coached him through that work. So now it's 2 generations in the same family who we are helping to find meaningful employment in the community, which is such a cool story. And we also have shared stories of many of the folks who participate in our Quantum Leap Recreation Program. Their families and themselves report that after participating in our bowling or walking club, they are becoming more socially engaged, more talkative, and more confident in speaking up for themselves and making their own choices. Even if that choice is if they want to bowl or go to a walking club, it can still be a really big deal and a great way to assert yourself.
How are your services funded, and what type of funding do you accept other than DD waivers?
That's a great question. So our funding is very complex. So we receive some funds, federal and state funds, as a Center for Independent Living. We also have contracts through the state of Ohio, the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities to provide our employment services and some of our benefits assistance services as well. We are a member of the Aging and Disabilities Resource Network and can assist people in Cuyahoga and Lorain County with benefits, assistance, and information and referral. So each kind of program has its own funding piece. We do also work with folks who have waivers, and our recreation program is sponsored by the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, but also the County Department of Senior and Adult Services. Oh, and grant funding as well. Excellent local foundations support us, such as Cleveland Foundation, the Gund Foundation, True Mart, Prentice, and others that I am still learning.
Speaking of employment and workforce development, how have trends changed over time? And what does that landscape and those opportunities look like now?
So one sort of in the big picture, a large change has been to really focus on meaningful employment. For many, many decades, people with disabilities, their only option for work was piecemeal work at a sub-minimum wage. And it is changing, and there are laws on the table now to make sub-minimum wage no longer an option for employers. But even then, what LEAP has really worked to do is work with employers and work with other local groups and like the county board to provide that meaningful employment. So to connect people with disabilities to employers in different types of jobs. So things like cleaning, administrative, retail, and then also moving toward other work as well, and really giving people a choice. That's continued and grown a little bit. More folks are more willing. Again, the county board has been a really great advocate to connect employers to people with disabilities to work for them. I think the other thing that's happened is with the pandemic, we had this great point of flexibility in the workplace and working from home and accessing what people need, really focusing on what workers need to work well. And that was really great for people with disabilities, where that flexibility to work in a space that's comfortable and safe for them, the flexibility to schedule doctor's appointments and take care of your physical and mental health was crucial. Unfortunately, we're starting to leave that productive and safe space. So that's continued to be a space of advocacy for many people with disabilities, both self-advocacy and speaking up for themselves, and bigger picture working with employers.
And as you work with employers, you work with the community, what are some myths or misperceptions that you have to work through?
One big one is that accommodations are always required and that they're always expensive. That is simply not true. Many of us have accommodations and we just don't call them that. And we maybe don't connect them to a medical diagnosis. So for example, I have an ergonomic mouse pad here so that my wrist doesn't hurt. That's an accommodation. Standing desks could be an accommodation. Changing work hours, flexibility, understanding of transportation needs for people. So working with employers to understand accommodations, not so much from an ADA compliance and legal perspective, but from a human being, employing human beings perspective, is an area that we really work with. And that's part of what we do. I think the other piece too is providing job coaching services. So that is something that's available to many people with disabilities through opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. And that could allow employers and the employee to get the support they need without having to take the extra energy and time of the employer's staff, the management team.
You mentioned other organizations that serve populations similar to LEAP's. Can you talk about collaborations and partnerships, or might other ways that you work together?
As Marianne mentioned, we are one of the founding members of Northeast Ohio Coalition of Disability Organizations, in which lots of the disability organizations in the area come together. We do advocacy and we support one another. We actually, a small group of us just had a meeting last week where everyone kind of just put out on the table what we're working on, what our priorities are, and the desire to collaborate rather than compete. And I think that's a pretty rare quality among organizations where we're looking to really share those resources with each other, because our goal, everyone's goal is the same, is to make our communities more accessible and to better the lives of the people that we love and work with and serve in our nonprofits. So we work a lot with NOCDO And then we also partner as LEAP with a lot of community organizations. As I mentioned, we're trying to make Cleveland more physically accessible. So working with Ohio City Inc., conversations with downtown Cleveland, and really working on this community level to address specific needs.
How does Cleveland rank in its accessibility?
That's a great question. There's not really super great data on physical accessibility. In general, I would say there's room for improvements. We can all see when we walk out, just easy things that you can kind of look for is the quality of the curb ramps going into a crosswalk, and are they stable? Are they flush with the street? Are they facing into the crosswalk, or are they kind of angled into the intersection, which creates a huge safety concern for people who use white canes? So that right there, if you just focus on those curb ramps, you're going to see lots of room for improvement in the Cleveland area. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and we just talked about how important sidewalks are for about half an hour and all the different ways that a good sidewalk can enhance access and community participation, and a bad sidewalk can just immediately keep you in your home. And all of the local Cleveland communities could use some work in those areas.
So many people think that the ADA solved accessibility for everyone. Can you talk about the pros and cons of the ADA?
Yes, so the Americans with Disabilities Act was, of course, a huge piece of legislation that the disability community advocated for, kind of the culmination of decades of advocacy and movement. It's really great in that it lays out expectations to follow and provides some basics, almost a social contract of basics. And that's important to note because it is a civil rights law. The ADA is not criminal. There's no consequences, really. It doesn't have a lot of teeth. There are a lot of limitations to it. Businesses routinely continue to build and create spaces that are not ADA compliant for no real good reason. And there's really nobody checking up on that. If you, wherever city you live in, go to your city's website and see if you can find out who the ADA coordinator is. Chances are, if they have one, there's someone who either works in the legal department or they work in a senior center. And they're generally not trained as an ADA coordinator. So they're not really being encouraged or prepared for and equipped to help individual people and businesses be ADA compliant. Every city is required to have an ADA compliance plan. Many cities still don't. And this was in 1991 is when this law was passed. And there's really not a whole lot that any of us can do about it. The only recourse is to file legal complaints with the Department of Justice or the FFA if it's airline related and so on. But there's not a whole lot of recourse otherwise. So I think social media is kind of starting to help because people can share the businesses that are doing well and share the businesses that are not. But that only gets you so far. And that doesn't usually contribute to real change in what those spaces look like. So generally good, but not perfect. And it certainly isn't done in its work of making this country more accessible.
And staying in the realm of policy, what are some of the key policy issues that you all see on the horizon that you'll be advocating for?
Sure. One of the big ones right now is the state bill around sub-minimum wage. That is happening. And I'm actually gonna stop screen share. And I can pull up, I have a cheat sheet with the numbers. So that is State Bill, House Bill 427. That's one worth looking into and seeing where, the history is there and where you might stand on that one. There's also different policies. There's a lot happening right now. There's a bill around companion animals and rental dwellings. There are some around building a 911 directory statewide for people with developmental disabilities. And these are all things that we're paying attention to, and getting engaged is needed. And of course, always looking for things around access to healthcare is really the big thing. There's a fantastic grassroots advocacy group in Ohio called Breaking Silences that some of our staff are involved with, and they'd be a really great group as well to follow and pay attention to and watch their work.
Beth, with so many years of your career dedicated to this space, has there been anything that has surprised you since taking the helm at LEAP?
Yes. So previously I was at Max Housing, excellent nonprofit, great organization. And Max Housing works with people with physical disabilities, provides accessible housing. Many of the tenants there have other disabilities as well, but the work really focused on making the physical space more accessible. So now getting to work in not just the physical space and public spaces, but focusing more on the person and the whole person. There are a lot of nuances to it that I hadn't perhaps anticipated. And I think it's really easy to fall into the trap of seeing disability as a monolith. Just thinking, oh, if we were all just in the same room, we'd all get along. But that's just, we're not the same. And disability might be one thing that requires different accommodations or a different approach. How you talk to a person is just going to be different, how they absorb information, what they need, what you need from them. And kind of pretending that we're all the same or we all need the same approaches and the same answers isn't going to get us very far. So constantly reminded with that, we are not a monolith expression.
So as you look ahead to the next year, what is a challenge that you anticipate, and how can those in the community support you to overcome that challenge?
Our two biggest challenges are, of course, the usual nonprofit challenge of unrestricted funding. As I mentioned, all our funding sources are generally tied to a specific program, which makes marketing those programs and trying new things really difficult. But the bigger thing is that visibility and public awareness, really reaching out and bringing people in the disability community who don't need social services together. All of our nonprofits, most of them are working with people who need something from us, generally a social service. But so many people with disabilities or people who identify as allies aren't included in that space. So finding ways to really bring more people together and gain a larger, more visible critical mass is one of our biggest challenges and what we hope to grow into.
Great. Beth, thank you so very much. This has been a fascinating session, and I speak for myself as well as for many on this call about how much we have learned about your work and about the need to continue advocating on behalf of this community. So thank you for all that you do.